The lights in the studio burned bright, cameras fixed on Senator John Kennedy as he leaned forward in his chair, his southern drawl filling the air with measured calm. But then, without warning, he turned his head toward the young reporter across from him and asked a question that changed the entire mood of the room. "Tell me, how's your father doing these days?" The studio went silent. The hum of the equipment, the shuffling of papers, even the faint coughs from the crew all stopped. The reporter froze. Her lips trembled, her pen slipped slightly in her hand, and her eyes darted to the senator in disbelief. This was not a rehearsed question, not part of the carefully outlined interview. This was something deeply personal. Her name was Emily Carter, one of the youngest rising journalists in Washington. She had built her reputation on sharp questions and an unshakable demeanor, a voice that never wavered no matter who sat across from her. But in that moment, the name of her father pulled her away from her professional armor and back into a wound she had carried quietly for years. Her father, a decorated veteran, had been battling a rare illness that left him frail, a shadow of the man who once stood tall in uniform. Emily had kept that part of her life out of the spotlight. She came to work every day, smiled for the cameras, asked hard-hitting questions, yet inside, she lived with the fear of losing him too soon. The senator's question wasn't meant as a political jab. It wasn't calculated. It was human. Kennedy had met Emily's father once at a veterans event, years ago, and remembered the handshake, the pride in his voice, the way he spoke about his daughter with unshakable faith. That memory had stayed with him. And now, here in the middle of a broadcast, he reached for it. Emily's voice cracked as she tried to respond. "Has a broken bar he's fighting, Senator." Every day, her eyes welled with tears, and the audience at home could feel her struggle. The studio crew shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to cut the feed or let the moment breathe. Kennedy leaned closer, his face softening. "I want you to know something, Miss Carter," he said gently. "Your daddy is one of the bravest men I've ever met, and no sickness, no hardship, can take that away. He raised you, and look at you now. You're sitting here holding powerful folks like me accountable. That's his legacy." Emily lowered her gaze, her hands trembling as she gripped her notes. For the first time in her career, she couldn't hide behind her questions. She felt exposed, but also seen. Kennedy's words weren't about politics, they were about a father's love, a family's battle, and the strength that carries on even in the darkest of times. The silence in the studio shifted. What had started as tense discomfort turned into a shared reverence. Viewers watching from home began flooding social media with messages, stories of their own fathers, veterans and workers, men and women who had fought their own unseen battles. The moment had tapped into something raw and universal, the fragility of life and the resilience of love. When the interview resumed, it was no longer the same sharp back and forth. Emily's questions carried a new tone, and Kennedy's answers felt less like political talking points and more like conversations between two people who understood the weight of family. The broadcast ended not with applause or headlines, but with a quiet sense of connection that lingered long after the cameras shut off. That night, Emily went home and sat by her father's bedside. She told him what had happened, how his name had stopped a studio full of people in their tracks, how a senator remembered him not as a patient, but as a hero. Her father, frail but smiling, squeezed her hand with what little strength he had left. "That's not about me," he whispered. "That's about you, kiddo. You're my fight living on." The words broke her heart and healed her at the same time. And when the clip of the interview went viral, inspiring countless families across the nation, Emily realized something she had forgotten in the weight of her career, that sometimes the most powerful stories are not the ones we write about others, but the ones born from our own lives. By the end, the moment wasn't remembered as a political exchange, but as a rare glimpse of humanity in a place often starved of it. It was proof that beneath the noise of arguments and headlines, what truly matters are the ties that bind USA, the fathers and mothers, the sacrifices and struggles, the love that outlives us all. And so, what began as a question that silenced a studio ended as a message that echoed far beyond it. Never forget the people who made you who you are. Honor them, while you still can.